Is it?
Hey everybody, I'm John from Let's Talk, and today we're going to be talking about the brand new, written and directed by David Cronenberg film, Crimes of the Future. But before we dive into that, if you're a fan of film reviews, 4K Blu-ray reviews, TV reviews, and some video game reviews sprinkled in here or there, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on. So Crimes of the Future came out at the Cannes Film Festival on May 23rd, 2022, and it just hit theaters on June 3rd, 2022. And I went and saw it today. You know, I didn't see any trailers for this film. I went into it completely cold, and I was very interested. I'm a fan of David Cronenberg. I've enjoyed a lot of his work. He's definitely got two very different kinds of styles of films that he makes. He makes those very classic body horror films like The Fly, Videodrome, or Scanners, and stuff like that, which he's very famous for, and actually was made reference to in Rick and Morty, where they said that they Cronenberged the planet when they turned everybody into monsters that you would see in such films like The Fly. And then you also have the side of David Cronenberg that makes films like The Dead Zone or Eastern Promises, or such films that he even did with Viggo Mortensen, who stars in this film, A History of Violence. Like, you know, he's had a very long and great career since the 70s, where he's made a lot of hits and he's made a lot of films that have won a lot of awards, such as at the Cannes Film Festival. So this is a guy who's definitely made some great films in the past, and he's 79 years old now. He even has a son who makes films, Brandon Cronenberg. He actually made a film last year that I really love called Possessor. So it runs in the family. These guys know how to make some great horror films. You know what? It's really just nice to see David Cronenberg diving back into the body horror scene like he does in this film. David Cronenberg has a type of style that you really notice in his films, where he is always trying to be kind of philosophical, and he's also talking about certain aspects of the world in his films. And in this film, it's no different. This film takes place in a near future where the world is kind of changing. They have made comments that people aren't feeling pain anymore. They have developed new technologies where you don't have to. And like, surgeries now in this kind of world are actually seen as erotic. And they even make comment that this is the new sex, having surgery done to you and like cutting yourself open, because it's a lot easier now with the new technology. And the world is just changing. It's just showing, like, kind of what he's doing is an analogy for what our world is kind of doing. How we are changing and adapting, and you can't fight it. It's talking about evolution, and that's what this film is talking about. That the longer you push back against it, the more pain you're causing yourself. And that's what this film shows you in many different aspects throughout the film. And it's also got that body horror in there, which I know is going to make a lot of people very uncomfortable, because there are scenes of surgery where we actually do see the insides of people. So if that's not your thing, I understand if you don't want to see this film because of that. I heard of people walking out because of just feeling disgust for it, and I get that. I personally didn't have an issue with it, but besides David Cronenberg's storytelling and the way that this film shot and its use of body horror effects it very much, there was also some great acting done in this film, especially by our three leads, Viggo Mortensen, Leah Seydoux, I hope I didn't butcher your name, and Kristen Stewart, who I actually really did enjoy her performance in this. And I'm just loving that Kristen Stewart is just trying out many different genres. Like, she did the movie last year, Spencer, where she played Princess Diana, but it was more in a horror kind of way. So she's trying out a bunch of different stuff, and then she's in this. She's trying to, just like I think with her Twilight co-star, Robert Pattinson, where they're trying out a bunch of different types of films, and it's just shaking that Twilight fan base off, kind of just showing like, hey, I can act in many different types of genres. Don't just pinhole me to what you saw in Twilight. I think she's doing a great job with her career choices, and I thought she did a great job in this. I actually think her performance out of the leads was my favorite. I really did enjoy her storyline, because there's a lot of different storylines going on at the same time, and that was probably my biggest issue with this film, was the storytelling aspect. Not saying that it's bad, but it felt a little unfocused, where they were definitely putting out a lot more questions that I feel like that by the end of the film they didn't answer. Like, you know, there's a couple different storylines going on in the aspect, like what I was saying about it being a sexualized thing to be operated on, and that's what the new sex is, and they dive into that. Or in the fact that, what do the cops have an interest in this? So it's almost like trying to tell a noir story in that sense of like, who is pulling all the strings, but yet they don't answer all the questions. It also tries to dive into one man's pain and trying to heal himself, and every avenue that he'll go to. Which brings me to another cool thing I actually really loved in this, which David Cronenberg, we've seen him do this in other films. The aspect of the bed this guy sleeps in is basically a living bed. It's its own like creature that's almost taking care of it, trying to heal all his pains. And we see not just him, but another character getting fed by this machine, and like it's jerking him around and everything, and it's putting the food in his mouth. It almost looks like a high chair with arms, like something you would see out of Beauty and the Beast almost. It really like would wrap you up into like this world, and that's what David Cronenberg did. He created a world, which he's done before, but this is a very like dirty looking world. A lot of time when we see movies that take place in the near future, they're very clean. They're not lived in. It feels like everything's got like this shiny coat over it, because that's just kind of what we've been taught the future will look like. But his is a very lived in, very dirty world, and like a lot of this stuff is just done in the underground, a lot of these surgeries and everything, but yet the technology is still very strong, but dirty and old, almost like what I pictured like with the first Star Wars trilogy. Like everything's lived in, and when you can nail that aspect, I love that, because everyone knows that the world is a dirty place. It just keeps getting dirtier and dirtier. You have to keep cleaning up. And like, you know, when you see in a movie that everything is just super clean, it's like, that's impossible. And I love that David Cronenberg paid attention to detail, and I really do think that that's one of the shining aspects of this is the design of the sets. I thought they were awesome. I loved them. I thought that every little attention to detail that we get, and that's David Cronenberg's thing. We've seen this throughout his entire career, that he really does pay attention to the small things, and that help tell a story. So other than having story issues where I felt like the script could have used another pass through, and the pacing was a little bit off. I didn't feel like we had a lot of highs, but overall I definitely enjoyed myself seeing this film. It was fun to see a David Cronenberg film in theaters. He hasn't made one in a long time, and it's nice to see that he hasn't lost his touch. But I can't sit here and say this is one of my favorite David Cronenberg films. I would say it's definitely a middle of the pack. It's not by far his worst, but if you're a fan of David Cronenberg, I really do think you're going to enjoy this film, and I think you should check it out in theaters. I was the only person in my theater, and that's kind of unfortunate. From what I was noticed with the production companies, a lot of people helped to finance this film, and I imagine it was pretty hard to do. It's probably a hard story to sell. For a director like David Cronenberg, that's kind of sad to see, but that's kind of the world we live in. You know, this was distributed by Neon here in the United States, and they really do pick up those small indie films. So I would really hope that people do go out and see this, but if you can't see it in theaters, I completely understand. Maybe when it eventually comes to 4K Blu-ray, if we're lucky, or Blu-ray, or just you want to rent it on Amazon in the future just to help out these small films to keep getting made, that's cool too. I could definitely recommend this. So if I was going to rate this film, I would say this is a solid 7 out of 10 film. Just some solid filmmaking from a legendary director, and I think you guys should go check it out whenever you have the chance. But as always, guys, thank you for being here and stopping by for this review for me. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you did, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and you tell all your friends.